Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC in this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey guys, it's Jordan here with Elite BSC Podcast. So when you think about a cleaning company that is crushing it, that is growing, that is thriving, that has high retention of customers and maybe even a decent retention or high retention maybe in their management and leadership team, great service, they're growing regularly, there's energy there in that organization and the culture is good, etc. That success doesn't just happen. And it's not even really tied to being good at cleaning or the cleaning processes or pricing or that sort of thing. Those are all certainly components that maybe they're boxes that need to be checked. But behind these companies that are thriving is good leadership. And it is owners and we can say key leaders who are leading the organization in the direction that it needs to go and are effective in that leadership, in making things happen, in getting where they want to go, in aligning people on their team, in implementing changes and processes and getting the right people on the team and securing relationships and creating that culture and that synergy in the organization and getting everyone to row in the right direction, all of those things. And this is a question, I think about. I posted something on LinkedIn earlier this morning, and I think about often what it is that makes some business owners in our industry successful in terms of just being able to embody maybe what I'm talking about here regarding a thriving company. And others seem to struggle and not be able to get things where they would like to get it to. And there are certainly a lot of factors that come into play. But one sticks out to me because of an article I recently read, and that is emotional intelligence. And so this, I read an article it was published in the Harvard Business Review back in 1996 by Daniel Goleman. And the title of the article is What Makes a Leader? And so one of the things that he argues in this article is that success in leadership, or someone being a good leader and being effective as a leader, is not as much a function of one's IQ and skill set, although intelligence and skill and work ethic, etc., do matter. They certainly matter. But that an intangible that is often not talked about and maybe not given enough emphasis in this leadership discussion is emotional intelligence, or what some people have called EQ, your emotional quotient. And I think he is right to argue that EQ is going to be the thing that drives, the people wanting to be on your team, the people being willing to follow you, the people respecting and following your leadership, the trust and the retention, morale, those sorts of things. I think that is going to be more a function of EQ than it is your tenacity or your skill set in the cleaning industry or your IQ or whatever. And so I wanted to just go through a few of these components that he talks about. There's 5 different domains is the way that he refers to it in the article that are the domains of emotional intelligence. And then we'll talk maybe a little bit about what they are and what they look like and maybe how it applies in our industry, and begin to give you ways of thinking about how improving yourself in this area might help you become a more effective leader. So there are 5 different domains: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skill. Okay, those all seem pretty generic, but let's start with the first one, and it's self-awareness. And so the definition that he gives in this article is knowing one's emotions, strengths, weaknesses, drives, values, and goals, and their impact on others. And it's a sense in where it's this honest assessment of yourself, and you're okay. What this looks like is confidence, maybe in yourself, a realistic self-assessment, maybe a self-deprecating sense of humor. You're fine with constructive criticism and feedback. You're not getting easily offended at this, but it's a knowing yourself, sort of a know thyself, and also being able to know how the way you are maybe affects other people. It's just having an awareness of these things, which then gives you additional pieces of knowledge to help you navigate certain situations. And, so for instance, let's say that and he gives an example in the book of a leader who typically doesn't respond to crisis situations well, maybe makes the environment more stressful, etc., and starts barking orders. And in his mind, he's not aware that this is what is happening to him. But upon reflection and getting feedback from others, he begins to realize there's this way that he responds, sort of a way that he is, that is affecting people in a negative way, and he was unaware of it. So this idea of self-awareness is just knowing how you are, knowing how you tick, and how other people's, the way they respond to you and the way you affect them and that sort of thing. And I think this is spot on. I think this applies obviously across a broad spectrum of life. So that's the first one. This is a big one for leaders. Like we need this one 100%. The next one is self-regulation. And so this is the idea of being able to control or redirect disruptive emotions or impulses that you might have. And so one of the things that he says in the book is self-regulation, which is like an ongoing inner conversation, is the component of emotional intelligence that frees us from being prisoners of our feelings. Many of the bad things that happen in companies are a function of impulsive behavior. And man, there is so much truth to this, right? Like our feelings can often sabotage situations. They can sabotage us, as we are dealing with a difficult situation, or maybe someone says something to us. Our feelings and emotions can get really strong and cloud our ability to think in maybe a bit more logical or rational way. And that can create impulsive behavior in us, or behavior in us that is not conducive to the outcome that we're looking for. And, this is not a knock on emotions. We're not trying to be stoics here who are void of emotions. Emotions are good, and they're a part of the human experience, and we need to understand them and tap into them and use them and enjoy them in the right ways. But sometimes they can derail the train, as it were. And so being able to, to know how you respond, the self-awareness part, and then be able to see those feelings and emotions for what they are, and then be able to deal with them is something that's super, super important, particularly as a leader. You got to have control over yourself before you can help move other people in a direction that you would like them to go. So that's the second one. The third one is motivation. And he says if there's one trait that virtually all effective leaders have, it is motivation. They are driven to achieve beyond expectations, their own and everyone else's. Those with leadership potential are motivated by a deeply embedded desire to achieve for the sake of achievement. And so, man, this is certainly true. I mean, we see this when you look at the whole, self-help leadership movement, becoming successful, all that kind of stuff, which I don't have a great appreciation for all of that literature and content necessarily. However, motivation is one of the core tenets of that, and it is certainly an ingredient to a thriving leader, a successful leader in being able to lead a company and to grow that company and make it to thrive. And it's being driven to achieve for the sake of something that matters. And it's not necessarily about you. It's about going out and accomplishing something. It's a passion for the work itself and for the challenges, and maybe even an optimism in the face of failure. So that's going to be motivation. And that's something, again, these we want to see in ourselves, but these are the sort of things that we'd like to see on our team as well, as we're recruiting and trying to build a leadership team, helping them grow in this as well. So the last one, the fourth one, is empathy. And empathy is a bit of a charged word these days in our current cultural moment. And it is something that has been used to the excess, and some people are even, I think, unfairly critical of the term as well. But all that aside, empathy is basically just understanding the feelings and emotions and maybe experiences, or being able to sympathize with the experiences of other people. Sort of putting yourself in their shoes. And if I was going to relate it to something, Jesus, when they asked him what was the greatest commandment, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he said the second one is to love your neighbor as yourself. And the idea behind that, and I tell this to my kids too, when they're thinking about a situation, it's like, hey, if you were your brother, how would you want to be treated by you? And so it's the idea of putting yourself in someone's shoes and trying to understand how they feel and where they're at. And as you're relating to them as a person, letting that be a reference point for maybe how you would handle the situation at hand. And I would just say on this particular one, I think this one's really important in our industry, because so many of our team members are people who probably don't get a lot of empathy in their life, people that are caring for them, people that are, it's just the nature of it. And I don't mean this to be offensive in any way, but a lot of the people that work for us are in crisis situations, have come from a rough background, have struggled in life. And even people that have risen up in the ranks, in terms of management at our company, have struggles. And we're a pretty blue collar, kind of industry, and it just comes with mess in people's lives. I mean, my own life has its own amount of mess. You multiply that by 500 employees, it's a lot of mess that is running around this company. And so being able to, because we're such a people-intensive business and our success depends on our people being able to carry out the functions of the company, knowing our people and understanding how they feel and being able to step in their shoes to the best of our ability will help us not only to lead them well, I think, and understand how to properly motivate them and encourage them and love them, but also give them a genuine sense of our care and concern for them. Now, empathy doesn't mean you just do what somebody wants, or you never hurt someone's feelings, or their feelings, are take priority over everything. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it is a responsibility of a leader to be able to understand the people that he or she is leading, and to understand where they're coming from and lead with that in view. And then the last domain of emotional intelligence that he talks about is social skill. And he expounds upon this a lot, but here's the general idea that I have seen this in my own life. As I'm thinking through these, I'm thinking about where I'm weak and maybe where I could improve, and then areas where I think I have done well in. And this is one that I have seen that in those times where I have found success, this one is close at hand. And the idea of social skill, it's not that you're not shy or that you know how to talk or communicate with people, but it's the idea of being able to get people, and more than one people, to move in a direction that you want them to move in. And it's having maybe this end goal in mind of like, hey, I'm trying to get everybody to go here. And it's the ability to be able to work and network and communicate and understand and motivate in order to push people in a direction that you want them to go. And this helps. It's almost like, if you're thinking about getting everyone on the boat to row and start rowing in a certain direction, well, it's almost like the rudder of the ship, though, is this social skill of being able to turn and channel all of that stuff in a certain direction. And in some ways, it requires some of these other things like empathy and self-awareness, like being able to understand other people, understand where they're coming from, understand what motivates them, put something out there in front of them, communicate that to them, and try to lean on them to move them in that direction. And that social skill leads to a team of people who follow a leader in a certain direction, and he or she has mastered this skill of being able to get those people to move in that direction. And it's powerful. And when it works, it's really cool to see. As I think back on some of the good things that have happened in our company, it's really fun to see when that social skill, when that ability to lead people in a direction works, and it works for the good of everybody. That's a lot of fun. So, you may be asking, well, crap, how do I grow into these things, these domains of emotional intelligence, or what we would like to call just good old fashioned wisdom? How do we grow in this? And he talks about in this article, there's a debate about whether there's nature or nurture here, and he would suggest that, like many things in life, there is both. Some people are maybe more naturally gifted, or because of life experiences are better in one area than another, but we can all make improvements in our emotional intelligence and move the needle a bit and get better at this, which is going to improve our leadership. So my encouragement would be to think on these things. Pick up a copy of this article. You could, if you Google search, I'm sure there's a free PDF online somewhere that you can find, and start thinking about this and thinking about how improving your EQ would improve your leadership at your janitorial company and make you a more effective leader, which would hopefully lead to a more thriving organization. That's what we want for you. That's what Elite BSC is all about. If you're not a member of our group, I'd encourage you to check it out. I hope this is helpful, and I may continue on this topic of leadership in the next few podcasts. I've got a few other ideas of things that I'd like to talk about and touch on. So I hope to continue this discussion. So I hope it's helpful, and we'll see you next time. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.